Okay, so is this possibly even a diversion
from Satan.
from Satan?
Yes.
To keep your eyes occupied there so that eventually he can bring the whole package across to you. And you accept it because you've become so fed up with this one issue that you will accept the other issue and the whatever it is as well.
You see, and like we've mentioned before, some people, some players in this might even not know the final agenda of Satan. I think
They don't know it.
No.
If they don't know present truth, they will not see how this puzzle is coming together.
And that's why it's so important, because the present truth that we bring now is the one that they don't see.
They don't see it yet.
And they believe that they're doing this for God. And they are sincere in their belief.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the future, they will have to make a choice.
They will have to. If you go back in history and you take the regulations that have come in because of diseases that have manifested and the legislation that has been brought in, it's a means to an end.
It's a tool of the beast.
So it was a distraction and it provided the impetus to introduce things which will be of benefit to an agenda in the future.
Yeah.
So that's how present truth works. You have to look at the mud and see the agenda. Otherwise, you just see mud.
That's the problem. And then you stand on the wrong side and you get mad at the wrong people.
All right. So we have a border crisis in the United States of America. And we have another crisis in Europe.
Yeah.
And this crisis has to do with many of the same issues, liberal agendas, and climate change agendas. Because now the climate change agenda, which is an agenda to reach a certain point, which attacks present truth,
True.
that has with it legal implications and financial implications that touch your pocket. So, if it goes so far that you're not allowed to breathe because you're exuding CO2, then it becomes a life and death issue.
Or you have a nice carbon meter on your breath, so you have to take slow and not so many breaths, otherwise you pay tax on it.
All right. Now, let's say, for example, we're going to look at it in a moment. Let's say, for example, they want you to be totally dependent. And they want to use something as a tool to get you totally dependent. So what if they want to say to you, we don't want you to grow your own vegetables because then you're not dependent?
Well, they won't say it like that. They'll just tell you, you growing your own food is bad for the rest of the people.
It's very bad for the rest of the people. Now the people say, excuse me, there's no logic in what you are saying. Then you say to them, but as we will see in a moment, CO2 is more prevalent if you grow your own cabbage than if someone else grows the cabbage for you.
Yeah.
And you say, of course, that's logical. It's brain dead, but nevertheless, let's leave it at that.
Yeah, that's true. But, the sad thing is people swallow it up and they accept it.
All right. But is there turmoil and anger and agitation involved, whether it is a farming issue or whether it is a border issue?
No, it's all agitation.
All right. And is it unhappiness with the status quo and the state of affairs and the way in which governments are dealing with certain issues?
True.
Yes. Is that a modus operandi to bring about enforced change?
Oh, for sure. That's ordo ab cao again.
Ordo ab cao. That's the way it operates.
And just before I forget, I didn't put it in, but there was, like always, Jesuit theater has prepared everybody for the border thing, for instance.
Oh yes, and civil war. It has prepared.
Well, just before we go to this, I remembered that there was a movie that came out in 1997, a satire movie that was named The Second Civil War. And the things happening in that movie was exactly what you see happening on.
So it's like a blueprint for what is happening. So it's Jesuit theater at its best.
Like always, every time there's something like this happening, go and see that you were desensitized before.
Correct. So any revolution in history that you go back in since the Reformation, any of those revolutions, if you looked and dug hard enough, you would find the Jesuits behind it.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that the same applies to today.
Exactly.
All right, so let's have a look at some of the turmoils that are happening in Europe with the farmers.
Everywhere you look, small and medium-sized farms being gobbled up by these corporate mega farms because they can't keep up anymore. They can't comply with these endless streams of regulations that are coming down. We're seeing that in China now, where these giant mechanized corporate, big government-controlled mega farms are displacing all these little small family farms that families have been farming for hundreds of years, in some cases longer.
呢度係政府地盤嘅範圍，請你哋離開。
They're moving them all off their little plots of land and moving them into these big, horrific mega cities that they have built. And we're going to see that all over the world with the decimation of small farms. So if they're not bankrupted by economic forces, the government itself will shut them down.
Well, Martin, this is an international thing. It's not only in France or in Holland that you have these riots. You have them all over. You have them in China. We have them in Africa. We have them on our doorsteps. The same sort of story over and over. And they want people to move into these 15-minute mega cities and be quiet and be happy and own nothing.
Yeah. It's so 100% against what the Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy tells us.
All right. Now, we always said we're observers, right? That doesn't mean we don't have an opinion,
No.
but we are observers. We just don't get involved in the war, except warning in terms of the prophetic profile. Would these things make you angry too?
Yeah.
Of course, right?
Of course, because it's illogical.
Oh, there is no logic in it. So if the government says to you, you may not plant a lettuce. You ask them,
Well-
why can't I plant a lettuce? Because your lettuce produces more CO2 than my lettuce. You say, but that's ridiculous. Where do you come with such idiotic arguments, right?
It was, I've said this many times. It was like when we had that full lockdowns. I went to the store because you're not allowed to go for anything else than the necessities. Okay, so I went to the store and I wanted to buy seeds to plant. No, there was a banner in front of it saying this is non-essential products. You cannot buy it.
You couldn't buy nuts. They were non-essential until you said to him, but to us they are essential because I don't eat your other stuff that you put on the shelf.
So, of course, this will agitate people.
All right.
It has to.
But that's not the point. The point is that you must become angry.
Yeah.
So that there can be a synthesis somewhere along the line. And are you going to be fooled into becoming angry?
Yes, because then if you get a government or a government official that speaks the language you want him to speak, you're going to go ahead along with it.
Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. So if you have to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea, eventually you say, well, give me the devil. At least he's talking my language.
That's what they're going to do.